The truth will set you free. It is a phrase we often hear, and it's one that Deborah King certainly believes. She writes about it in her book, Truth Heals. Joining us this morning is Deborah King to talk about lying. We've been kind of teasing it throughout the show of how to spot a liar, but we're going to get into a little deeper issue with the segment. But can you spot a liar?
Oh, you can. You know, over 93% of all of our communication's nonverbal. So we're talking with our body all day long, and there's certain things that amateur liars do. So, for example, their mouth will smile, but their eyes will not, or they'll turn their body away from you to create a little distance, or perhaps they scratch their face and touch their hair a lot. These are all indications of lying.
How did you pick up on these things? Initially by going back and watching videotape of maybe somebody who was a little bit more well-known, who was lying on camera?
That's a good way to do it. For example, watching Blagojevich last month was very instructive because he became pretty practiced. He could look right at the camera and lie with impunity, but if you saw a split screen, you'd see when he thought the camera was not on him, he would become very ill at ease, shifty-eyed, looking away a lot.
I mean, and that's a bigger example, but I suppose everybody's probably told some kind of a lie in their lifetime, whether it be the little white lie that we talk about or a major lie. Why do people lie?
Andrea, we start when we're little kids. We all lie because we want love and we want to keep it, and so we start to tell ourselves and others lies really when we're little. You know, it starts with a parent who says, be a little man and stop crying at grandma's funeral. So we take our feelings and we push them down somewhere and say, well, that's not me. And it's these lies we tell ourselves that do the most damage.
And what kind of physical damage can they do ultimately? If
Oh,
keep
a lot.
Them bottled up?
When I was in my 20s, I had cancer, and I tracked it back to lies I was telling myself, and that's how I got into this field.
It's very interesting. I was telling you before the segment started, I learned about little white lies earlier on from one of my grandparents, and it was in an innocent way. It was my parents' anniversary, and I wanted to make them a cake, but I didn't want them to know that that's what I was doing. So we told a little white lie that I actually was doing something else to occupy my time during the day. And I remember my nanny saying to me, well, it's just a little white lie.
And that's how we learn. Our caregivers teach us to lie.
She watches. I don't want her to think that she turned me into a liar. Is it possible, and I think it probably is, that we lie to ourselves? We start to believe our own lies when we tell them often enough?
We do, and I work with people. As I crisscross the country, I work with people in groups, and some of the classics are when we tell ourselves, I'm over that bitter divorce, and in fact, we haven't even begun to deal with those difficult feelings.
Well, how do you teach people within this book then to deal with them? I mean, what's the first step?
There's so many things you can do. One of the easiest is just to write something down. Take 5 minutes, pen and paper or laptop, and something that's on your mind, something that's bothering you, maybe that conversation you had with your mother-in-law last week, it could be anything, and just write about it. And that actually brings up the feelings that we're denying and helps us process them.
I would imagine that really the first step is recognizing that you're lying. Do we tend to have a hard time?
We do, and so calling it kidding yourself is easier. And think of all the things we kid ourselves about how much we're drinking or how many pills we're taking or how we really feel about our job. It can be almost anything.
Or relationships. I would imagine that that's a big one too.
It's the biggest source.
So you probably help a lot of people also on the radio show dealing with lies in their relationships.
Right. Well, and the big relationship lie this month is Chris and Rihanna. She's kidding herself. She's saying, oh, it was my fault. My love will get him over this. That's a huge lie.
Well, in writing this book, I mean, what was your ultimate goal? What are you trying to help people do in this book?
I'm helping people track back from their emotions back into their body and connect. There's a disconnect there. So, you end up with headaches or depression or maybe a full-blown disease process, and you say, I don't know why I have this. Actually, you can track it back to your emotions, and that's what Truth Heals does, is it helps people make that connection.
So, and you mentioned it earlier that you had been diagnosed with cancer and then you tracked it back. So you believe then that through lying, sometimes it can cause a physical medical illness.
What happens is we deny a part of ourselves, which causes an actual disconnect between inside our body between parts of ourselves, and that can create a disease process.
Okay. Well, you're going to be in town. You're talking tonight, and what will you be talking about? I mean, it's a book signing presentation of sorts that's happening at Joseph Beth Booksellers. How much time will you be spending with people, and what are you going to try to teach them?
You know, I'll be there an hour or two, and I'm going to work on helping people connect their truth.
Okay, well, the book signing presentation is going to be at Joseph Beth Booksellers in Legacy Village tonight at 7 p.m.